Hey folks, thanks for taking a look at today's blog. I've had a couple demos and a couple calls this week on insulation jackets and heater type jackets, things that need deformed shapes that need flattening. So I thought I'd do a blog on that subject. What I have is a transition that I was sent. I'm going to go ahead and open that up. It's a parasolid file, so I'm going to open that up into an assembly. Okay. Let me go ahead and save this. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do, let's go into the part. I do not like that color, so I'm going to make it something a little easier to see. There you go. And since I did open this in synchronous, a few things I can do. I know I'm going to be making a heater jacket or insulation jacket, I should say, for this area right here. So there's some things I don't really need. There's some ports on the segments here, and it's a taper transition, so it looks like it's starting from or ending or starting at an 8, going to a 10. All right, so it does taper down. Excuse me. So what we're going to do is get rid of these radiuses on the ends. I know I don't need those. It's just going to have to make me do an extra step to make my jackets extend to that. So what I'm going to do is a selection step here. I'm going to go ahead and say recognize that round chain. Again, this is just a body feature, so it's not. There's nothing intelligent about it. It just I'm using commands like selection manager to go ahead and grab all the areas, or just using the steering wheel command to grab some faces and drag and or delete in this case. So there we go. All right, this is ready to have some bodies placed on. I think I'm going to do 3 different sections here. So instead of doing all the multi-bodies in one file, I'm going to save this, go back up to my assembly. I'm going to create a part in place. I'm going to do one section, the second section, third section. So instead of having a whole bunch of multi-body parts in one file, I'll have 3 separate multi-body parts, which you will see shortly. So I'm going to do this in a part file. We'll just call this section 1. All right, so what we're going to do is we'll do this first straight section here. Since we already have the geometry, I'm just going to do this in synchronous. I'm going to first off just copy. So I'm just going to say copy that surface right there. So again, you notice if I didn't do that with the rounds off, the edge would have been out here, not the edge wouldn't be tight against the flange here. So that's why I got rid of the rounds. That will work. So let's go ahead and actually create the geometry for this. It would just basically just be a matter of thickening this. So let's go 01. Let me show you why I'm going to go just what I typically do is create the inside surface and the outside surface and thicken them separately. That way I have an inside skin and outside skin. Then I can actually generate all the little cross sections in between. Plus, if I just say, give me not 1 inch, let's go with actually go with 1 inch, some exaggerated. All right, so what you'll see, it will offset it, but on edges that are not normal, like this is normal to the reference plane, but the pipe is tapered, so the cutout itself is not normal to the actual geometry. So there's a gap over here, and it actually is inside the body right here. So if you try to go too thick like that in one step, you're not going to really get what you're looking for. All right, so let me do that again. Offset, thickness, 0.01 will work. I want to offset it outside. All right, so there's our first geometry. Go hide that. So what probably do is probably the easiest access to put a seam is to stitch it or put a seam on the outside edge. So it'll be easiest to get to. So let's go ahead and take care of that. I'm going to just cut a path right through the end here. So right here will work. Oops, make it so big. So 0.0325 seam would work, and I didn't mean to close it. Sorry. So now I'm going to just extrude that through there and cut it on through. Of course, this this would probably, if it has a flange on top of it, which I believe it does, you can't just kind of slide that over the top of it, and you don't want to have too big a gap around it. So in most places they would have a seam along here, which they can kind of just wrap around it. So we'll go ahead and do that as well. So I'm going to do another cut on this plane. We'll just make the seam straight up and down, even though it is at an angle. So I'll apply some geometry here. And if it's really needed, you can put a dimension from one end to the other, so you can kind of dictate where you want it. I'm just kind of eyeballing it. We'll just drop it right about there. That will work. And same process as before. Cut that on through that side. There we go. So now that will fold open, and we can wrap that around the edge. That is the inside body. All right. So if you wanted to, now let's, like I said, I want to create these into sections. So while we're here, instead of closing back to the assembly, we're just going to create some multi-body parts. We're going to basically create the outside surface off of this, and then we'll create all the intermediate pieces. All right, so let's go ahead and take care of that. So surfacing, we know we want a 1/2 inch offset on this jacket, so I'm going to say offset from the outside edge, again to the outside. All right, so as you can see here, the reason you're doing 2 separate skins is you get a better fit on this. It's not have such a big gap as if you did it as one solid piece. All right, so that works. All right, now the multi-body process comes in. So I'm going to say add body. We'll call this inside skin 1, and we'll call the outside skin 1. That'll work. And just give it the same thickness as the inside skin. And there we have it. All right, so we have 2 skins. They're identical. The seams are in the exact same locations. So now we just need to close this up to get the outside parts, or get the little intermediate pieces. And I found that's quite simple, simply done with a blue surf command. So let's do this outside face first. I just want to blue surf from here to here. Oops. Again, from there to there. There we go. And you want to do the same thing on this side. Try to get the inside edge. There we go. The same thing, we need to close off we have a place to close the gap off here. We can close that off. These are basically the same, I think. Oh, no, they're not. Actually, there's a split on there, so these would not be the same. So let me go ahead and create that inside edge. And the last couple, actually, we still have the seam here and these on top. Let's do the blue surf from that inside edge to that inside edge. Oops. I want to make sure I get do all this in one shot. There we go. Alright, I want that to go to that edge right there. Alright, so there we have one contiguous surface that we can now, so there's obviously a few other pieces like the inside piece here and there, but let's go ahead and start doing what we need to do to these to make this a solid body, is to make these thicken. Alright, so now comes the step again. We'll say add body. We'll call this intermediate piece 1. Okay, and doesn't matter which one we start at, we'll just start down here and thicken that inside, outside. I guess inside would be beneficial in this scenario. Sounds good. Done. All right, add body. We'll say IP2. Oops, thicken. All right, and continue on. IP3. And thicken that up. Alright, so once you go through and thicken all the geometry, So we had some other pieces on the inside here we didn't do, but we'll go ahead and skip past that for now. And we'll just say, how do we get these to be as an assembly? So let me go ahead and show you. So if I close back to the top level, you notice that it does a single piece. All right. So of course my bill of material will show a single item. We don't want that. What we want is individual piece parts published. So if I go back and do multibody publish now, so here's the pieces that I just created, and here's an assembly that's going to create for me. So let's go ahead and create these files just by hitting save file. Here's all the little links to them. All right, once I'm done, let's go ahead and open up with this assembly. There is my assembly. These are actually solid pieces, so if I just open this up by itself now, it's just basically a copy of the original part. So if I change the original, this automatically updates. We can do things. We can come over here and let's flatten this guy out here. Given material. And say OK. So there's our first piece flattened. I think that was the outside. Let's go do the inside real quick. Do the same process. Flatten. Give the material. I'll show you here a short step in the assembly to go ahead and apply all the material in one shot. There we go. And let's do, I was mentioning, we can go to materials. Let's see. Go to command finder. Type in material. We go to material table. Oh, there it is. That's what I was looking for. So we can actually go in and add the materials to all the individual pieces at one shot using the material manager here. But only got one more piece, so let me just go and open that up. And this was a fairly complicated little profile here, so let's see how this will handle it. So again, flatten. And looks like it handled it just fine. So there is that piece right there. Go ahead and close this back out. And we're done with the first section. All right. Let's toggle on over. All right, so let's create our second body, which would be this elbow piece. A little more complicated, and I'll show you how we're going to do this one. So I'm going to create another part in place. And we'll call this elbow jacket. All right. So again, first thing we want to do is copy from this. I'll come over here and interpart copy again, just to get the geometry we want. So there is it. There it is. There's the actual little outlet there for the sensor or some kind of other input port. All right, so let's go ahead and deal with this. All right, so the first thing we want to do is go ahead and give it some thickness here. So we'll just do the same thing we did in the previous geometry. And it's going to be the same thickness. And of course we need to split it down the edge here. So again, we'll do just a little sketch like we did originally. And then let's make sure that's on the center. We'll put a relationship here to tie that to the center. There we go. And 0.0325 is the same gap as I did on the out. Oops. Close it again. Oops. Habit. I'm closing that. All right. Extrude. Cut that all the way through. All right. So the seam is the same as the other one. All right, and let's go ahead and start dealing with how we're going to make the individual pieces. Obviously, if you try to wrap a piece of cloth around there, it's going to bunch up, especially if it's a thick vinyl type of material for an insulation jacket. So what we want to do is divide this into several 5 pieces. All right, so let's take care of that. We're going to create a sketch to do that with. So what we want to do is get the intersection of where this and this start, because I know that's the center of my pie pieces. So what I'm going to do is I'll just actually, I'm going to create a construction geometry here. There we go. So now I know my center location for the rest of my pie pieces, and that would be right here. So I'll just go ahead and draw. Let's do this into 4 equal pieces. So 1, 2, 3, 4. To put some angles between here. So I can control the spacing. And that will work. Let's see what the overall spacing is. I know it's not 90 degrees. It's a tapered down. So it's 58.27 on this elbow. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is let's tie these geometry together so I don't have to change a whole bunch of them. And we want to tie the last one to here. There we go. So 58.27 divided by 4 will give us roughly 14.5 spacing. All right, that's perfect. All right, so now let's go ahead and create our surface so we can create our multi-body. All right, so this is slightly different than the concept y'all saw earlier. So I'm going to actually, instead of creating a multi-body, I'm going to create a split body, which will in essence create a multi-body. And do the last one here. Okay. So now I have my pie pieces in place. So let's go ahead and divide this up. All right, so same place that we did the multi-body, we have a different command called split. All right, so I'm going to grab my geometry, grab the surface, and continue on. And the last one, and we'll have our little pie pieces here. All right, so now you notice we have our 4 bisected segments. That's all we need to work with. All right, perfect. So again, as we did for the previous one, let's go ahead and quickly publish these. Well, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and actually do the outside bodies too before we do that. All right, so I'm going to come over here and say add body. We'll call this, we'll just do one outside elbow. Say outside elbow 1. And kind of like we did, we'll just do a couple sections here. We'll say surfacing, offsets. Let's use one of these sections that have this little port on it, so we'll just do that. Offset. Same offset we did originally, half inch offsets. We want to add a body. Already did add body, now I just need to thicken it, excuse me. Alright, so there is our pie segment with our port through there. Everything seems to fit quite nicely. Alright. We'll close and return back out. Alright, let's go ahead and now publish this elbow out to its individual components. Alright, multi-body publish. So these files have not been saved, so let's do such. And close. Alright. Good enough. Alright, so let's go ahead and let me just open up that assembly. So here's the individual piece. Let's go ahead and open these up. These are a little more complicated than the straight section, but it should work. Alright, so we have our ring here with our port cut out, and let's go ahead and transition this to a flat pattern. Sometimes you get something that's really complex. It's typically with something with a tight bend radius on the inside or not much material, but I have found a workaround. And it's quite simple. So let's go back to the ordered. I'm going to move this to synchronous because we have a command synchronous. It is optimize button. So if I move that to synchronous and run optimization on this, and let's see, it did find a few things, cleaned up a few sections here. Say okay. Now let's try doing the flat pattern. Do the same resolution, same thickness. And there we have it. So Even if you get stuck in ordered and it won't do it, synchronous does have the tools that let you kind of refine that profile and make it a flat out of it. All right, so close this back. All right. So there's our one section and our two sections. I can tell you what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and let's bring this in the draft and to show you what the final process I typically do with these are. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this into an ANSI inch draft. Oh, I think I just clicked it wrong. It's all right. New draft, not assembly. Let's go run the wizard so I can place this how I want. Place a couple views here, top side, make an ISO view. And put my dimensions on here, but what we're really concerned about is actually generating the flat pattern. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to insert a sheet here. Let's go ahead and let's start grabbing some of these pieces. Actually, let's do a parts list. Oh, sorry. Let me get out of there. I grabbed the part file. I didn't grab the right one. Here's the one I wanted. That was my mistake. That's why you publish it. Otherwise, you get a single list item in the bill of material like I just did. So here I'll get an actual correct bill of material based on the components. User error. We'll just ISO view and do the parts list again. Now you notice there's actually more items in the part list and the quantities, etc. And I don't have my balloons on, but just pointing to the items, you notice it does do a good job. Let's bring in a few more views here. Oops. There we go. So that's the end view that I want. Side view, top view. All right, now let's bring in detail in. All right, so as I mentioned, there's the flat pattern. So I'm going to insert a sheet. Let's go and start bringing in. That's the rings. That's the port. That's the IS. You can actually see. What's nice about it is it'll actually show you which item you actually have picked. So I know that's that outlet or the ring there. I know that's that little port segment. We'll bring that in. There's the inside of the body. We'll just go ahead and just bring that in. And of course, we want the flat pattern. And we want 1:1 scale, which is not going to fit here, but I'll just go ahead and place it right there. We just need the flat view. So how do we get that into the sheet? We'll just go properties. We'll put this on sheet 2. And that's probably going to be way too big for this sheet. So how do we get that to, well, actually it fits. It fits without the title block on there. So I'm just going to go to sheet setup and say turn off the background so you don't see the background. And let's go ahead and put that there. Let's go ahead and bring another part in. Let's bring in that little section. That's a little ring that goes around there. Let's bring the flat pattern of it. And not 10:1, let's bring it 1:1. And there we have it. Alright, so from here, this may be a little too crowded. Obviously, you can insert as many sheets as you want for all your detailed pieces. What I typically was doing for the people I was helping out, I was showing them, well, how do we, because they want to cut it larger than the actual part because they have seam allowances. All right, simple enough. We can have sketching tools in our draft. And what we're going to do is I create a layer, and I'll just call this seam. And now we'll create the seams by just doing a simple offset. It's typically a 1/2 inch offset, and let's make it a different color than the body. We'll just make the seam red and grab some outside faces here. And which way do you want to offset? Oops. Do that again. It's red. There we go. May not be able to do them all at one shot depending on the curvature of some of these pieces. You know when I did that, you can see because it's a curve and it's basically making it larger than it can. So there's a little cleanup that may be needed. just using the regular sketch tools. So then you can just come over here and trim those together to get a nice corner. Should be able to trim these together. That doesn't look like a nice trim, so I'm going to come back again and kind of get rid of that extra little segment here. There we go. Then trim this corner together. That looks nice. And that corner looks nice as well. Alright, so let's do this thing on the bottom. I'm just going to move this up in here for now, just to make it a little easier to see. Let's see how this guy turns out. We'll do a 1/2 inch offset on the oops. I think I undid one too many. There we go. Offset that a 1/2 inch. There we go. So just again a little cleanup work here. And I can tell you why it actually, because this is actually a spline profile. When I offset it, you notice it creates a spline with a whole bunch of points. All right. So when you send this to your DXF, it's going, or send it out as a DXF to your burn machine or laser, it's going to see all these points go crazy. All right. Right click, simplify. And say OK. Doesn't change the curve. It actually just changes the slight tolerance and actually gets rid of all those extra little points. Makes the file a lot smaller to deal with and a lot easier for your machines to read. You don't really need these 1/2 inch layers. And of course, I did the, I think I did this on the normal layer. Yep, I did on layer 1. Well, how do we actually move layers around? All right, let me close back. All right, so what you can do is use a smart tool. So smart select, and we just want to click one of these and just probably just do it by color. It's fine. Then we come over here and say move that element. And we're going to move it all to my seam layer. There we go. Just make layer default layer active. Then we can hide, and then we can show our seams as needed. That way you can. Oh, one more thing that I was doing that may or may not be necessary. They like the corners cut 45 degrees. So I was just coming across. That way the laser machine would read that and actually cut the corners. So when they do sew it up, it gives you a nice accurate seam instead of people having to do a bunch of hand cuts. Alright, so that is multi-body design. That is using flat pattern to generate profiles from all kinds of shapes. I haven't seen a shape they have not been able to flatten with. Without maybe a little tweaking here and there, we could probably get a flat pattern. So very useful tool. Again, for people who are doing heater type jackets and or insulation jackets for parts. Great tool. If you have any more questions, feel free to give us a call at Swoosh Tech. My name is Dylan again, and appreciate your time.